So what do you offer?
Well, so when I'm working with a seller, the seller's has that price where they really want as much as they can, and right now it's just a raw piece of land. What I offer for the seller is I am able to negotiate them a contract with the buyer that is both beneficial to the buyer, but it's also beneficial and reasonable to the seller. So there are a dozen mistakes that sellers make when they don't use an agent, or if they use an agent that is not proficient in entitlement contract contingencies. They can. One of the classic things that the buyer does all the time is they go, "Congratulations, your property's $3 million. I'm going to give you a full price offer." Or they'll even get a little bit cutesier with it and they'll say, "Oh, you want $3 million? We're going to offer you $3.2 million." Real exciting. The seller's like, "That's great," but they say, "But the only thing that we have to do is make sure that this gets rezoned." And it slaps together in a form, everybody signs it. Well, what's happened is it's an open-ended contract, and it's contingent upon the rezoning, but we have no idea how long the rezoning is going to take. Not only that, but you could be in a situation where the buyer is actually land banking and they drag their heels on purpose. They always come in and say, "Look, we want to get this done just as quick. We want to get it done as quickly as you do, or we want to get it done even quicker than you do." They always come in with that. But unless there's a definitive date, you really can't. You're painting yourself into a corner. It's a bad situation. So, in order to make sure that these contracts are even more solid, it's better that the seller's a little bit more prepared. So, if grandma and grandpa gave you this property 42 years ago and you haven't done anything with it, at a minimum, you have a 42-year-old survey right now. You want probably a newer and more accurate survey. Stuff is happening around you. You might have sold off another piece or whatever. So, in order to get the premium price for these land acquisition teams and the buyers that are around, you want to make sure that you have a current and accurate survey. The other thing is that if we're in an area that does not have municipal sewer or some kind of private sewer system available, it's hugely important that we're aware of the dirt, we're aware of the soil, so we can figure out what the capacity of this property is. So, it's great. Maybe you already have the zoning that you need. It's zoned R1. You got 100 acres, 1 acre minimum. We can put 100 lots on this. Doubtful. Okay, so we need to get the soils evaluated to see how many septic systems we can get on this property, whether or not we have any riparian buffers or wetlands. We need to know the limitations of the property. If you already have that, your end-use buyer is going to be a lot more. I mean, first of all, they're going to know that they're dealing with a professional, educated seller, but they also know that there's not as much risk. If it's already been vetted, they can go in pretty much earlier and figure out what kind of potential that property has. There's two other things that are real important. You have to judge on the property. We might want to do geotech. That's pretty important here in the Piedmont, because we have rocks, and sometimes we have big rocks, and that, people in Chapel Hill love rocks. They love to see rocks in the backyard, but builders don't like to see rocks, and that can be a huge expense. So a geotech report. And the other one is a phase one. You might have a piece of property that's just been timberland for 100 or 200 years. Probably not going to have any issues, but we've had 100-acre pieces, and the seller was a timber guy, and he kept all his hydraulic fuel and antifreeze containers. So it literally was a pyramid of containers that was about 20-25 feet tall, and we had some ground contamination or whatever. I've sold properties that it's hard to believe this or whatever, but there's nothing there now. But 100 years ago, it was a gas station. We had gas stations 100 years ago. You could have some underground storage tanks or whatnot. So getting the phase one is really important. If there's a series of questions that I can ask you, and the reason why this is so important is because if you dealt with an agent that wasn't familiar with the phase one process, you could be all excited. You could have your property under contract. Well, guess what? The buyer's going to do a phase one, and you might learn something that you had no idea about. It's not necessary to do a phase one, and phase one is a very expensive inspection. So it's not 100% you do it on all of them, but you need to be able to navigate which ones to do it and which ones not to do it. And then the other service that I provide is that I know a lot of these land acquisition teams. I know what the current trends are. I know what they're asking. Like, a couple years ago, we might get 30 to 60 days of an examination period. Well, guess what? It's probably closer to 75 or 90 days of an examination period, and that's changing constantly. So we need to know what is going on in the industry so we can prepare the seller and accept an actual contract that's not going to waste everybody's time.